Hi everyone, this is Tracy Chen and welcome back to my channel, My Great Australian Dream. For those of you who don't know me, I am an Australian immigration lawyer and I'm the principal lawyer at Mason Chen Law Group. We'll look at the requirements, the occupations that have been invited, how many points these applicants had, and just generally the process and our experiences this year. The funny thing is that Victoria has been probably one of the best states for invitations for skilled visas this year. In the previous years, it really wasn't, but this year it's just been absolutely crazy. So many of our clients have been invited and the process has been so quick. So for those who had an excellent profile and was exactly what Victoria is looking for, from the time we lodged the expression of interest and registration of interest, they were getting invited in maybe under 2 weeks, nominated a week after, and then some have already received their visas. So this whole process was done in 3 months. Now, I'm not saying that this can happen for everybody, but I guess it's just really exciting to be able to see this, and it gives us kind of that hope that migration is back in Victoria. Now, before we get stuck into it, if you want to get in contact with myself or one of our fabulous lawyers, our contact link is below. You can book a consultation to explore your migration journey with us. If you're just looking for some general information, we do have courses available at courses.tracymigration.com.au. The link is below, so feel free to check that out as well. Now, first of all, let's have a look at the basic requirements to be invited for a 190 visa in Victoria. There's no specific occupation list for Victoria at the moment. They just follow the occupation list by the Department of Home Affairs for the 190. I'll drop that link below. But there is obviously occupations that they favor more. And they recently announced fast-track processing for occupations that are basically healthcare and teaching. Like yesterday, we lodged an expression of interest and registration of interest for a physiotherapist. They were invited 24.5 hours later, as one of my case managers calculated. So the process is quick for healthcare occupations at the moment, as well as teaching occupations. So first of all, head over to the occupation list and see if you have an occupation which is eligible for the 190 visa. If you have identified that occupation, you then need to check if you're eligible for a skills assessment. Now, each skills assessing body is different, so you will need to look into the requirements for the skills assessing body or obtain the right legal advice for this. Now, let's assume you're eligible for a skills assessment. You will also need a minimum of competent English. Now, obviously, competent English is a basic requirement. However, if you can score higher in your English, for example, proficient English or even superior English, you're going to be able to score more points in your expression of interest, which will obviously help your application as well. Now, recently, I did attend a webinar with Live in Melbourne, and they did discuss a couple of important matters. So they did say that they don't really look at points, but they do look at an applicant's work experience and English. So they do want the applicants to have a high English level, which also directly affects points. So I just want to mention that. So what you're aiming for is definitely higher English at this point. Once you have English and a skills assessment, if you're under 45 years of age and can score at least 65 points in your expression of interest, you're eligible to lodge an application to be invited for the 190 visa in Victoria. Now, first of all, it's different between onshore and offshore applicants. The 190 process is open for onshore and offshore applicants. So let's go through them one by one. Let's first of all talk about offshore applicants. So you must be living outside of Australia. There's no minimum period that you must have been living outside of Australia, unlike other states. So if you're living outside of Australia and you met the requirements that I just spoke about, you just lodge a registration of interest, identify as an offshore applicant. You don't really need to provide anything else. Live in Melbourne will then assess your application on the basis of your work experience, the occupation you're in, the demand for the occupation in Victoria at the moment, and your English level. Recently, we have received invitations for solicitors, teachers, marketing specialists, accountants. Our offshore applicants in these occupations have been invited to apply for the 190 visa. For onshore applicants, it's a little bit different and almost a little bit more complicated. If you're living onshore in Australia, you must be living in Victoria to be eligible to apply for the 190. You can't be living in another state, for example, New South Wales or Western Australia. However, there's no minimum residency period, so it's not like you need to be living in Victoria for a month before you can apply. Now, if you look at the application form for the registration of interest, you will see that there is a field where you can claim your salary. You can only claim your salary if you're working in a skill level 1, 2, or 3 job on ANZCO. Now, I can't even mention what these occupations are because there's so many, but I'll drop a link below. If you look for the occupation and it says skill skill level 1, then you're eligible to claim the salary that you're earning. If it says like skill level 4 or 5, then you can't claim the salary that you are earning. Now, the whole reason for this whole salary claiming thing is so you can get priority consideration. It's important to also mention if you're claiming salary as someone who's living and working in Victoria, your employer must also be based in Victoria. So if you're working from home for a company that's based in New South Wales, you wouldn't be able to claim your salary. However, if you're working from home and their company has an office in Victoria, but the head office is, for example, in Sydney, then you'll be eligible to apply as long as the company has a physical presence in Melbourne. So those are the requirements if you are an onshore applicant. So once you have made those applications, so your expression of interest and registration of interest, then it is just a waiting game. However, if you do have an occupation on the fast track list of occupations, I'll drop a link below so you can have a look. You can expect to be invited within 2 weeks of submitting your registration of interest. And again, that has happened very much for our clients. We submit the application and they're invited like 2 days later, to be honest. Then once they receive the pre-invite, we process the documentation to lodge the nomination, and the website says that they should be nominated within 5 days. And again, that has definitely been happening for our clients, nominated in like 3 or 4 days. When you are nominated, you will receive the final invitation from the Department of Home Affairs to be invited for the 190 visa. And that's when you can actually lodge your 190 visa application. If you are offshore, you will lodge it and you'll have to wait offshore until your visa is granted. If you are in Australia, then when you do lodge the 190 visa, you should receive a bridging visa to stay in Australia until your 190 is granted. Now, we are seeing faster visa grants for applicants who are in kind of your healthcare and teaching occupations. From when we lodge it to when it's granted is like 3 months. But I'm also seeing it for, IT occupations. It hasn't been too bad at all. We also had an accountant who was nominated for the 190 and they got their 190 visa 4 months after. So overall, not bad at all. Now, what happens after you are granted this visa? If you look at your visa conditions, there is basically no conditions on there. It just says permanent residency. However, when you actually were nominated for 190 visa, you would have signed a declaration. That declaration requires you to basically live and work in Victoria for at least 2 years after your visa grant. Now, we haven't had too many issues with this because most people who apply in Victoria want to stay in Victoria. Like, they don't want to move anywhere else. Maybe Sydney, but they're not looking to move anywhere else. And it is very much recommended for you to stay in Victoria for at least 2 years after your visa grant. We have heard from some states that they have a right to withdraw your nomination. So again, I've never seen this be implemented, but it's definitely something to think about. Now, Victoria will be closing for applications as of the 5th of May, so literally in a month's time. So if you're looking to get your application in, it's probably a good time to get it in as soon as possible. I know some skills assessing bodies are taking quite long at the moment and it's something that you don't have control over. But if you do have your skills assessment and everything else ready, get your application in. Even though the applications close on the 5th of May, I do think they'll continue inviting after the 5th of May. I believe that's what happened last time. Then if you don't get invited, then you can re-lodge in the new financial year. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you liked my video today, please don't forget to like and subscribe. In my next video, I'm going to talk about some of the frequently asked questions about the 190 visa in Victoria. And then in the next video, we'll also look at the 491 in Victoria. Thank you so much for listening and watching today, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.